Hey, White Sox fans. It's Brett Ballantini here, hosting the Southside Sox Mothership Podcast number 51. This is take two, but you guys don't know that. No, you guys don't know that. It's Mitch Ransdell. We're talking to Mitch Ransdell here. He's got a unique position with us at Southside Sox. He really is our, at this point at least, only sort of artist in residence, also writer. He's cranking out the terrific weekly Player of the Week pieces, giving us a nice, a tasty, unique take on the White Sox players every week. And it's sometimes a challenge because he's already had a couple repeats. So it hasn't necessarily been easy. The season's been terrific, but sometimes we've had some repeat guys being honored, particularly in the starting rotation. Mitch, it is terrific to finally be able to talk to you on one of these podcasts.
You as well. Thanks for the invite. I appreciate it.
Did I approximate the down-homedness of the name Ransdell pretty well?
You did. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Excellent.
My expectations were pretty high. So
you did spend about 5 years in Texas, which isn't exactly, Kentucky, Tennessee.
Yeah,
but,
no.
Right.
Close enough.
Yeah,
close enough.
It was
South
hard
of
time.
Berwyn.
It was hard time. Yeah, right. So Mitch, I mistakenly, really, I got to be honest, I thought that we'd sort of already been able to talk directly. Mitch sort of joined up with us when we were in the guise of Southside Hit Pen, and in fact, doing the Sports Illustrated gig last summer. So it's been about a year we've been sort of associated in the same crew. And I sort of figured that maybe we'd already at least done a brief sort of video intro thing. And you're actually such a one-man band that you were so great with your videos and doing sort of your time-lapse art and introducing it so well. I guess you're like, well, Brett, I don't need you. I'll just do my own thing. And so just stay away. You can only sort of screw it up. So I appreciate that. That's awesome. But it's even better to be able to talk to you directly, finally.
Absolutely.
Let's talk, Mitch, before we get into your art, your writing, let's just talk about how really your fandom began.
Yeah, well, so my family, my mom was from Roseland, so she grew up a South Side girl. My dad was from the North Burbs, and somehow they both just sort of settled on the Sox. They got married, they had me, and so it was sort of a natural thing. So I sort of came of age going to first ball games when, new Comiskey Park was happening and Frank Thomas. And so that was sort of the Sox environment that I grew up in. And then sort of the long, slow climb to 2005. When that's when things sort of really cemented for me, like I'm sure is the same for probably a lot of Sox fans my age. So 05, that's what really did it, woke up early in the morning, skipped school, went to the Sox parade, and it was all over for me after that. So
I sort of teased you before we started our second take, Mitch, but it's interesting when I talk to folks, and of course, almost always at least a little younger than me, that it turns out that oftentimes like their favorite game or one of their most memorable moments, I actually was in the park at the same time. And I do not know the geography of the parade well enough to confirm this, but like you, my dad and I went down to the parade, and like you and your dad, we were watching from a bridge. And I remember that because the cops kept yelling at my dad to get off the bridge, and he, of course, was cussing back at them. So I don't know how many different bridges people were on, but we could very well have been enjoying the parade from the same bridge.
That would not shock me. And this might be a bit of a false memory, but I do remember seeing people climbing up on the rusty wrought iron and all that.
Well, so the one who was cussing back was my father.
Was your father.
And probably me tugging at him saying, come on, it's not that big a deal. We're here to celebrate. So yeah, when I saw that, I thought, oh, you know what? We were definitely there together.
Fantastic.
And I granted, whether we were just one of a million together or we maybe were a little closer, but
I'll go back to the little roll of snapshots we took that day. I'll look for you. I'll see if I can see you in the crowd there.
All right. So what first game? Well, what season was your first game?
So probably would have been probably 94, somewhere right around there. It was probably 94, I would say. Yeah. So I just missed Old Comiskey. Too young to have any memories of that, which is why, of course, I'm obsessed with it now. Where is it? It's out there somewhere. So I just missed that, which is just a great tragedy, but it's okay. I have to live vicariously through other Sox fans who were able to witness that, the magic of that space, yeah. So 94 was probably my first game. Yeah. I'll ask my dad.
Still, I mean, sorry, Mitch, I invite you on just to rub your face in it, but let me tell you about Old Comiskey.
Please.
Of course, by far my favorite park still today. And of course, I'll admit, I'm sure that has a lot to do with the fact I'm a White Sox fan and it was my first park, but was in college in Texas when the park shut down. Drove up, I want to say it wasn't the last weekend, but I want to say maybe it was the second to last homestand. Drove up in September with a friend who'd never been. Drove up from Texas. Saw a series of games. It was in the upper deck, one game. And as I left, I knew for the last time, of course, really sad. No tears yet, because they weren't singing nah, for the actual closing of the park. But I do remember before I realized, or I could never have anticipated that people were just going to be able to take trunk loads of bricks, away, just back their way up to the old park and just take bricks.
Yeah.
I thought I was being really sort of a clandestine in just getting some paint. I remember grabbing some paint and putting it in my souvenir cup and being okay, man, I have a memory. But, then of course, as it turns out, everybody and their brother, bricks that never even saw Comiskey Park or the South Side are Comiskey Park bricks.
That's right.
But yeah, it was nice, to be able to skate. And that was a terrific season that last year, that 1990 season. They came out of nowhere, obviously, to be just this sort of force. They came of age. The timing, I guess, was right. And then, of course, the new park really right for Jerry Reinsdorf, certainly for everybody to be excited. And then a couple years later, young Mitch comes by and says, all right, hey, they just win every year. This is great. Man, I didn't know I was a fan of the Yankees.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess I should mention that, of course, we are publishing this podcast sort of in conjunction with Mitch's Beat the Players, which is something we do, particularly when the person who is being featured for the first time, even though he's been on the site for quite a while, for the first time on a podcast. That's sort of how we try to put this together. So you can, of course, read a little bit more. I'm not going to cover every point from Meet the Players here in this podcast, but one thing I wanted to bring up, because your favorite baseball movie is one that does get kicked around a little bit. And I know there's a Shoeless Joe connection there, I think, that really probably makes it for you. But I think Field of Dreams gets a rougher ride from people than is probably warranted. And I have to say, it brought a tear to my eye and watching it with my dad in the theater. And I think it's hard if you've had that experience. And this doesn't have to be a boy and a father, or a man and his father. It can be a girl fan. It can be anybody, really. It can be a father to a son.
Absolutely.
If you've had that experience, it's pretty hard not to be a little choked up. And granted, there is obviously the movie itself, it certainly has a little bit of saccharine to it, of course. But
yes,
it's pretty hard not to take a punch in the throat, at least toward the end of that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's something, it kind of grasps at something that just sort of the soul of the game. It's a really hard thing to capture on film. And and there's not that much baseball in it, so it's able to do that by kind of talking about the game and how the game, showing how the game affects people. And so that one, I'm so sentimental about it, so that one will always get me.
And Mitch, given the fact that Ray Liotta is Joe Jackson swinging from the wrong side of the plate, it's probably good that there's not that much baseball.
Yeah. They could have stood for a little more research. Yeah.
Well, Ray, you're an athletic sort of guy. You're young. I think you can develop a swing from the left side of the plate. We can Foley art the crack of the bat. Jeez, man.
Absolutely. Movie magic.
Strange. Yeah, real strange. All right, let's jump into, I guess I want to know about how you got your starts in sort of both things you're doing for us, in addition now to podcasting, that is. And let's start with the art, because you're a pretty dynamic force with the art. It's not just limited to sort of how I think most of us got to know you, which is through the Sharpie art, because what you're doing for us is by and large exclusively pencil sketching. And I think you've even started maybe even to dabble into some paint as well. But sort of how did the art come together? How long you've been doing it? And I know I think it's been relatively recent that you've actually sort of been putting this to the White Sox, but give us a little background there.
Yeah, I mean, I was always drawing as a kid, so that's something that's always been there since I could hold a marker or a crayon or something. And I went to art school. I went to Columbia College Chicago, so I developed that a little bit more there. And hobbies come and go. It was dabbled with graphic design and things like that too. And then so when COVID hit and I'm kind of sitting here, I'm around the house. I was laid off for about 6 months, and I had a lot of Sharpie markers laying around. I had a lot of paper, and I just I started dabbling. And I guess the root of this, and I don't know if I've ever really expressed it. I think I kind of discovered this recently. So remember at the current ballpark, the outfield fence, they used to have those sort of posterized, before they moved the retired numbers up,
right?
They had them out in the outfield.
That was pretty cool.
It was really cool. Yeah. I love that. And so that's sort of the root of it, is this sort of posterized, like it's sort of abstract faces, it's like, well, you can kind of tell it's Minnie Minoso, but unless you know what to look for, it's so I thought that was really interesting. So with Sharpies, it's one color. It's kind of hard it was a challenge to kind of make these people look recognizable. So I think it's kind of rooted in that outfield fence. Rest in peace. I wish they hadn't gotten rid of that, because it was just such a cool thing. So yeah, dabbling with that in COVID, and just sort of developed into this whole shebang.
That was a really unique aspect of the park, especially given that it sort of got birthed in, unfortunately, it caught a lot of criticism, deserved, I suppose. I mean, certainly hindsight 2020 deserved, given the direction new ballparks went. But I mean, pretty quickly they made attempts to correct that, and it's a terrific ballpark. And it's interesting that you wouldn't. I mean, I don't know if because there are statues dotted throughout the park now that it's like, well, we don't need stuff on the wall too. But geez, right? I mean, why not? Well, they're not putting advertisements yet on the outfield walls. So yeah, it is interesting that's gone away, and it is a shame. It's a really interesting genesis. Now, listen, for a guy who I could not come, I have no artistic skill. Okay. It seems really like this is an all-in proposition. I mean, you screw up with Sharpie art, you pretty much gotta crumple it. This speaks to your natural gift that you're able to just sort of throw this down. Now, were there any stops and starts and sort of getting into this, or did you just sort of fall into it like, yeah, this is like a niche that I can easily fill?
So the first one I did is Old Comiskey, the facade. A lot more forgiving, because it's a building. Okay. If one brick is like that, you're not going, strange. So that was sort of an experiment. I had tried that about a year and a half ago, just kind of for fun, and then I let it sit there, and then eventually, I'm trying to think, the first player I tried, it was Shoeless Joe, I think, actually. He was a very recognizable face. And so I gave that one a try. I'm always drawing from photos. I mean, I'm by no means like just generating this. It's like, there's a picture right here.
Right.
And I'm, trying to essentially to duplicate that and kind of pull out where the shadows are and try to capture the essence of that. So it started off with Shoeless Joe and Comiskey, and kind of expanded from there. And I was trying to pull players from different eras to kind of keep it interesting to people who might not necessarily be old time White Sox, So yeah, I've done a pretty fair representation of the whole team history so far. But that's the great thing about the Sox. There's just so much history to pull from, so many great players, and everyone's got a story about each one, So there's always going to be some interest.
Yeah, true. I don't know the term, of course, because I'm very ignorant when it comes to art, but you do
Sure.
like a little bit of sort of like ghosting sort of with pencil before you do commit, or is it just blank page?
Yeah, I'm always going in pencil first, and then when I start inking it out, this was the mistake I made. I always start with the face now, because the first couple times I started, let's start with the Sox logo, and then did everything else, and then the face was just awful.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasted like an hour on that. Let's start with the face, and if the face looks good, then we'll keep going. So that's really the trick now. I always start with the face.
So we got a little bit of Ransdell, like cutting room floor. We got a little bit of material out there that isn't quite released. The B-sides.
Yeah, the B-sides are in the shredder. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. And this is another thing we'll link back at Sports Illustrated. We did feature at least one of your pieces, and I think only one exists to this day, because actually the first piece you ever did was your terrific take on the iconic Sports Illustrated cover with Dick Allen juggling and smoking, and there was some controversy with Sports Illustrated saying, "Oh, we don't have the rights to that," which is, go figure, Mitch. I imagine when you heard this from me, you were like, "You're joking, right? That Sports Illustrated doesn't have the right to this Sports Illustrated cover." Apparently they did not. So that was an interesting stop and start, sort of in working together, Mitch.
That was a wild one. And the Dick Allen one came out of so pretty rapidly after I sort of made an Instagram account, made a Twitter account, started posting things. Nancy Faust got in contact with me immediately. And she had retweeted a few things, and Dick Allen's social media guy, Andy Woolley, had contacted me, and so I ended up doing a drawing for him, and then I did the Sports Illustrated one, and that's sort of where it kind of snowballed, and I started getting a lot of media attention, which was completely unexpected and a lot of fun, because then people start sharing stories. They start, hey, could you draw XYZ? I'd love to have this for my dad for Father's Day, stuff like that. So that's where it's been really great.
That's got to be a fun wrinkle for you. Not obviously just in terms of just even be able to do some commissioned work and have reason and have purpose beyond just deciding, hey, I'm going to do some Sharpie art. But I mean, getting the stories, getting the reasoning, and then of course, I assume pretty much 100% of the time, nailing the desire and leaving somebody pretty happy with what you presented to them.
Absolutely. With a drawing, just nothing else to it, and it'll put a smile on somebody's face, and so that's been really that's what's really kept this thing rolling. It's just a lot of fun, and Sox fans, I mean, they're terrific. Everyone, like I said, everyone's got a story. It's just this working class feel that I've always loved growing up with Sox fans around.
There's something in you that is drawn to that. It's not to say you have to have that in you to become a White Sox fan, but it certainly helps. And we all come from very different backgrounds, and there are people, of course, not even from the Chicago area who become White Sox fans. But I do think there's something that you tap into with yourself as a person, and not just as a fan, that says, okay, this is the class of people, this is the group of people, this is the realness of the fan, the honesty of the fan that appeals to me, and there are other options for me that ring more hollow. Yeah, this is who I am.
Yeah, I think that's what it's always seemed like to me. It's gritty. There's nothing gaudy about the Sox, it's you almost can't make it gaudy. It has so much history and grit just imbued in it that it always feels so genuine to me. So I think a lot of people sense that.
Now, unfortunately, listeners, Mitch does not, I've tried to find a way, but Mitch does not have like 40 hours a day. He doesn't have like 32 hours a day. So I can't actually get him to do even more. But believe it or not, we have talked about a lot of different stuff. And hopefully some of that will still come to life, because he's the guy I want to go to, really as our visual expression at Southside Sox. It's got off to such a terrific start. And one of those things that we discussed, it actually did come to fruition, because it did squeeze in that 24 hours a day. It didn't quite go overtime for you. And that is what you're doing for us now. And that's the player of the week, which is determined by the fan vote after every game on the 6-pack of stats. We have we have the poll, and of course, it's not super scientific, although, believe me, Carlos Rodon is running away with it so far this year, and I think that seems rather accurate. And this is something that you decided to take on that goes beyond. I think probably when we first started talking, said, hey, you want to just, I think you might have come to me and said, hey, I want to do something. What are some ideas? And one of the things that we came up with was perhaps doing this sort of weekly spotlight. And I think maybe I even offered, because Lord knows I'm always offering, and I want to encourage and say, oh, well, I could maybe write something up and you do the art. And, to your credit, and it might not even have got to that point before you just said, yeah, man, let me put something together. Let me see what I can come up with. And I've said this to you, I think several times already, but the writing's actually very fresh. It's pretty terrific, Mitch. And when you find more than 24 hours a day, we got to get you writing some more. But talk a little bit about that, because I think this is some of your very first sports writing, and what that experience has been like. It's certainly different from art.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Again, creative writing, always something I enjoyed. Love that in school. Short stories, nonfiction, anything like that. I enjoy writing. This is my first stint into any kind of sports writing, and so it's easy to write about something you love. You know what I mean? You just kind of, if you're paying attention, I really just felt it kind of, just kind of flows. So it was really a natural fit, and it just it feels great to have just kind of a little routine going with that. It keeps me engaged.
Yeah. Despite only going to like art school, Mitch, and not going to journalism school. No, I mean, one thing that jumps out is you do have the hook, you do have the lead pretty well. You have a nice theme in most cases, and it's hard to do it every time, especially when you're going maybe even back to back with Yasmani. But there's always a hook, and it's usually pretty creative and clever, and oftentimes fun or resonant, and that's all we're looking for as writers. You could make a 2,000 word story and you still need that hook, or you can do a few paragraphs like you're putting together for us every week, and it can be just as powerful if you get that hook, and that's what you're doing. That's what jumps out. Again, to my surprise, is like, okay, wait, this guy does art, he does it great, so great, now he's writing really well too. All right, well, I got to give him some kudos, because he's just getting outside all of it.
I appreciate that. My mom's an English teacher, so she gets some of the credit.
And I gotta say, Mama Ransdell is she's a hero here, because clearly, even though the parents decided on the White Sox, well, come on, North Burbs, listen, Pops, he might have always been a White Sox fan, but he obviously had some influences that might have been whispering in his ear to, to go to the dark side. So I'm going to give Mom at least 51% credit for making the right choice there. So
I think that's fair.
Hero, not just as an English teacher speaking to my soul, but also as the core White Sox fan of the Ransdells or the Ransdales. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to talk. We've got the back of the baseball card for Mitch down a little bit. And we're going to talk 2021 White Sox and sort of where we're at and where we're going. And we're going to do that in just a minute. Hey, everybody, that minute is over. Welcome back to Southside Sox podcast. It's the mothership, number 51, featuring Mitch Ransdell, or if you're a little bit further south of Berwyn, as Mitch says, it's Ransdell. And okay, we are talking now 2021 White Sox, decidedly in first place. Seems like that cannot possibly be compromised by the All-Star break. I would argue the pace of the team is better than any of us would have thought. Injuries aside, any of us would have thought, given that they are still, at least I would say, about mid-90s projected wins. Your take on what is now pretty much close to the first half, Mitch?
Yeah. I tell you, I mean, it's been I think everyone knew it was going to be an interesting season. Even before the La Russa announcement, people knew it was going to be an interesting season. I had high hopes for playoffs. I still have high hopes for playoffs. I didn't think it was going to happen this way, nor did anybody. That we're, essentially looking at almost a completely different team than we had on opening day. Yeah. It's incredible. I mean, I don't know what's driving these guys. I guess it's, some of them this is a great moment to shine. Some of them probably don't know how long they're going to be up here. Mm-hmm. Some might be down, back up next year. It's a chance to shine. And I think that's what's really getting these guys going. There is some serious momentum here that's keeping us afloat, and I hope it continues past the All-Star break, but we'll see what happens.
Is there a concern on your part as a fan, given the fact that, shockingly, I think folks were most concerned pre-injury or even into maybe say the Aloy injury. No one, I think, would have said this White Sox starting rotation would have been the strength of the team, of maybe the main four aspects of defense, bullpen, offensive lineup, and starting rotation. We might have placed that fourth, given the fact that it seemed like a strong three, and then, well, okay, who knows? Obviously, it's been enjoyable to see the starting rotation be as tough as nails. Recently, we've seen some cracks in that, I suppose. Concern for you, not only the fact that they've been so healthy, because of course that's always just any game. If you can, anything close to 32 starts from the start of these days, like, okay, that's gravy. We can get you past 30.
Absolutely.
But the fact that now there's been some effectiveness that's maybe lagged a little bit, a concern looking toward the second half for you. You think that there's going to be just enough guys stepping up, like you've already pointed out, with some of these rookies in the in the starting lineup, that somebody is going to step up and sustain the run that the starting rotation's been on.
Yeah, I mean, the weight has been solidly on the bullpen up till this point, and you know, that's a long couple months to be really carrying a team. And you know, not to ding the offense at all. You know, there's obviously been a lack of power compared to last season, especially. But yeah, at some point, you know, I think we're starting to see it now where, man, just the burden of carrying this along it's starting to get to some of these guys. So yeah, they're gonna have to dig deep, really kind of just try to pull things together, just keep everything tight for just a little bit longer, until we can at least get a couple healthy bats back. And then I think they can kind of, I don't want to say coast, but they'll be able to at least ease back on the throttle a tiny bit, and maybe kind of, I don't know, build up some reserve energy to hopefully take us into the playoffs.
As true to our nature as Sox fans, we sort of start with the scary stuff first, but let's talk about the sort of the flip side of that, and that is the fact that this division's awful. This division is really struggling to provide a challenge for the White Sox. And by no means does that make it a coast. But right now you've got a Cleveland team that might be projecting to 500, might be. I'm not even sure if they are. If you take it run differential wise, and even if you just project their record, they're not much over 500 because they've been in a tough spin. They've managed to lose pretty much as we've been struggling to win. That part helps. Now, granted, you don't want to back into the playoffs. You don't want to be even though they won the World Series, you don't want to be a 2006 Cardinals, or I think 83 and 81 or whatever it was, and then they end up, winning the World Series. You can't count on that. But just getting there seems like there's this golden path to October. Again, you want to be strong. You want to be best in the American League. But in terms of just getting to those playoffs, man, it seems like the rest of the AL Central is making it easy for the White Sox.
It's a little scary, and there's definitely that fear where, oh man, we get there, we finally get there, we look around, and then we just get stomped. That's terrifying and demoralizing for the players and for the fans. Last year it was still sort of the sense of, oh, we're still rebuilding. So it wasn't the end of the world. It was, oh, there's playoff experience for these guys, even if it's just one little series. But there's definitely some trepidation there, that maybe we need a little more challenge here to test the metal here, before we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, that's what's frustrating with fans. And listen, I get it. I mean, we're not dwelling on negatives, but fans are like, "Oh, come on, man! They're in first place. What are you picking on a team, or why are you down about it?" And listen, it is sort of this weird thing that we have where it's not just, man, we just want to scrape to get into the playoffs, which maybe even last year in that bizarre season, that we're just like, geez, just make it. It's great, even though it seemed like you sneezing in the playoffs last year. This year it's like, okay, playoffs is one thing, and not to say it's in hand, but it's like, okay, that's our expectation. Now, what do we do when we're in the playoffs? And that's, I think, where some of the unease and the concern and the holding Rick Hahn's feet to the fire to continue to fortify this team.
Yeah.
comes from, because it's like, well, we don't want to just get there and be, one and out. We don't want to be Minnesota Twins. We don't want to win one game like we did in Oakland and then just bow out. Like, okay, well, let's hope the window of contention stays open. Let's hope we have a season next year. Let's strike now. And so there's those sort of two paths where it's like, well, okay, it's great that we're in first place, but what do we do, in September when, okay, we clinch, but we're clinching, maybe stumbling.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where, we're already kind of leaning on any of the guys that have playoff experience, Eaton, look, any of these guys, look, have you been there? Have you seen the promised land? They're all going to play a different role just off the field in kind of bringing assuming a lot of these rookies are still with us at the time of the playoffs, knock on wood. They'll be able to kind of help guide us over that little bump and at least kind of ease nerves a little bit. And so we're not just walking in there like completely blind. And I do think LaRusso will be a bit of an asset there. I mean, no, you can't deny the guy's had, World Series experience at the very least. So, he's not the worst guy to have in that situation.
Things do seem to finally settle down a little bit with maybe some of the growing pains.
Yeah.
I think the balance of fans are pretty critical of Tony Russo. I know there's a lot of pushback now from a certain segment of fans who are like, hey man, he's a Hall of Famer, they're in first place, back up, and okay. And obviously, what I think of those fans based on the stupid voice I just gave to them. I'm sorry to voice that, any of you listening who happen to be a big Tony fan, but that's all right. We're fans, we can disagree. But certainly it's nice to know. I mean, it's good to know that there's not just matches being lit and flicked at players once a week. I mean, it does seem like, and let's face it, maybe because things have gotten a little rougher, and frankly, he's not even sure who's going to be on the bench to send into the game at this point with some of the injuries, that it's just like, okay, I'm not going to manufacture anything. I'm not going to get into like the rules or whatever, the old school rules, because I just want like four healthy bodies on the bench.
Yeah, he's trying to fill a lineup card and he's looking around going, well, grab that custodian over there. Give him a bat.
How much, Mitch, again, let's go back to speaking to your fears as a fan. I mean, guys have really come through this season. Cameron Sheets comes up, he hits the ground running. Jake Berger comes up, acts like he's been there. We've seen a little bit of that with the pitching as well. Guys seem to be certainly not disappointing when they're called on. Danny Mennick's been basically giving you what you think Danny Mennick is going to give you. There's just not that much left. Now, granted, we're in trading season, so of course trades, even minor ones, can bring in a little blood, even the Jake Lamb level guys to the roster. But really, when it's tapping into the system, I mean, besides maybe a Tim Beckham who has been lighting it up pretty well in Charlotte, I mean, that reservoir's got to be pretty much tapped. And that's a little bit daunting too, because there could still be, I mean, as we've seen with Yasmani Grandal, now we have Sebi Zavala up. I mean, you can't expect any team to be this deep, and we can criticize the system or the off season of Rick Hahn or whatever. But I mean, the team is what it is right now. And it's nerve wracking to know that, the injuries aren't necessarily going to stop, but they're just, at some point, it's going to have to be, all right, I got to trade for that guy because, well, we're going to go to single A, for our next reinforcement.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's terrifying. We're just kind of looking back there like, well, who's left? It's again, like you said, kudos to these guys that have stepped up. That's been probably my favorite part of this season personally, is just watching these guys. Hey, welcome to the big leagues. Cracks just a clutch anything. It's just, you can sense that they are feeling that momentum. They're tapping into that. So there's something there that's driving this team and making these guys just, really want it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew Vaughn, welcome to big leagues. Play left field. Hey, Gavin Sheets, you have 15 games in right field in your life. Get out there.
It's incredible. And you can tell they're having fun. I imagine that the mood in the clubhouse is injuries aside, they seem to have really good chemistry and they seem to have a lot of fun. I mean, I'm sure that's been demoralizing, But at the same time, I mean, they're still winning. There's something working. These guys are coming up and they're hitting.
Yeah,
They're fielding.
There is something in the water that says, and this kind of as elusive as things like confidence and momentum and clutch can be, and we can't really quantify it. I mean, clearly there's been something that's been clicking where as I think as you referred to, the next guy up is just for that mentality has been like, all right, and they have enough confidence. I mean, at this point, we got for it seems like weeks now, we've been running out maybe half a major league lineup, half an established major league lineup, and not necessarily every one of those guys being necessarily good major league talent. But I mean, we're at the point where there's significant gaps every night on the lineup card of guys who don't necessarily have any business, on paper being there. Gavin Sheets should not be starting in right field in the major leagues as of yet. It's great that he's proven that he can. Andrew Vaughn technically jumps from high A right into the majors, and we sort of knew that was happening. Maybe at DH, not in left field.
In left field.
And you wonder, Jake Berger comes up. Okay, he's got the jitter, he's got the nerves. Can I do this? Well, okay, not just because the corner outfielders can do it, but all right, he's at least playing the position he's supposed to be playing. He could be like, all right, I'm a third baseman. Now let's just focus on the hitting.
Yeah,
it's terrific that these guys just really player after player have managed to step up and sort of keep this run for the White Sox going.
Yeah, absolutely. And it started with the Mercedes.
Yeah.
The Mercedes episode, it's just, there's just all these, and I don't know if it was sort of just the off season energy building. Hey, the Sox really, and so when these guys get up, they just tapped into it and they know that the Sox are supposed to be good. And man, they fed right into that energy. So, I mean, that, Mercedes, maybe that was all he had, either way, it was an incredible story. It was an incredible run, and he contributed big time to a lot of these wins. Right. And, if each one of these guys can add a win to the total tally, hey, great having you aboard, that's what we need. It's a team effort.
If they get a ring, guys who've done much less have earned a ring. So Yermin has earned his ring if there's a ring to come, if he doesn't play another inning
exactly.
with the White Sox. It is exciting to know. And the idea, and I certainly poke fun at it because I think I just referred to sneezing and making the playoffs last year. But, listen, as much as you can say, well, that wasn't a real season and that wasn't a real playoffs and that wasn't real. Well, listen, there is something to be said for having made the, now it wasn't just buzz, because you get buzz about teams who haven't done anything, haven't even made a fake playoffs where half the teams make the playoffs. So the fact that there was buzz and there was a little bit backing it, even in a weird season, something backing it, that may speak a lot louder than any of us might think. It's easy to say like, oh, okay, what does that matter? It wasn't even a real season. Well, if that's just another thing that you can sort of put on the resume of the White Sox, and if guys join the team sort of buy into this, say, hey, if you can trick yourself in your head, okay, not performing is not going to be tolerated. You figure any of the 30 teams, you get up there and you don't perform, will be tolerated. Well, they're a lousy team, so it must be tolerated. And the White Sox, we know in very recent history, it's been tolerated. So there might really be something sort of between the lines there and in the heart that says, once you put this uniform on now, whether it's the Smith side version, whether it's the Sunday, the Sunday 83s or the traditional uniform or the blacks, once you put that on, hey, listen, I gotta perform. And there's just something in the spirit and gives you some mental strength. These guys have been there. They're going to pick me up. It's encouraging.
Exactly. And like you're saying, it's sort of this undefinable concept. You can't weigh it. You can't measure it. There's no stat to describe it, but there is some sort of buzz, some sort of energy. And hey, you know what? It's gotten us this far. So it works. I'll take it.
Okay, let's bring it back. Let's go, well, not quite full circle, because we're not going to go all the way back to 2000 on that bridge where my dad was about to get arrested and you and me were just planning on like cheering for the team, but okay. Let's take it somewhat full circle back. Let me ask you two questions about the art directly. Who has been your favorite guy so far to draw in these weekly MVPs?
Well, we've seen, as you alluded to earlier, we've seen a lot of these guys multiple times. I would love a chance to draw Lynn like mid bellow, that would be great again. I enjoy that. Yeah, Rodon's been a lot of fun. I think he's expressive. Yeah, so I'd probably go with Rodon. Although, sorry, Rodon, no, actually, Cease's batting.
Oh yeah, that was sweet.
Cease, the Dylan Cease game that trumps it. That's the one.
Sweet.
Yeah, that's got to be the favorite of the season.
Pitcher who puts .2 WAR up just for one game. That is pretty sweet. And the fact that, you got to capture it. Well done, voters. Thank God you delivered that for us.
Oh, I'm
we
so
really
glad.
needed that art. Okay. So let me then ask the sort of the flip side of it, because there's a number of guys who have not been able to be featured, including guys who've been injured all year. Who's the guy you're most looking forward to finally doing, whether it's this season or maybe even next?
Yeah, that's great. Let's see. Who have we not seen yet? We haven't seen. Looking down we did Kopech. I was really excited to do Kopech. Mm-hmm. That was great. I love that. He's got something special. I enjoyed doing that one. It was fun to get a chance to do Mercedes. I would love to do an Eloy because we didn't really get a chance. I think we may have touched on it in spring training, but I would love to. He's so recognizable. He's got the gloves. He's got the sunglasses. He's got so many things going on. It's just fun to draw. Yeah. I hopefully we'll get a chance. Hopefully we'll get a chance this season.
Yeah, if you talk to him, he's like showing up, and every time he's gonna be in Baltimore.
He's ready.
He just shows up. It's like I know I'm supposed to be doing my rehab, but I just figured maybe I'll show up in Kansas City. Maybe you guys need me.
He's gonna be sneaking in like the mascot uniform. It's gonna be Southpaw walking out there, and he's gonna take the head off, and it's gonna be Eloy. Yeah. Anything he can do to get out there.
He's whispering to Vaughn, like, okay, Tony's a little older. I don't know how well he can see. Let me just go out there for one inning.
Yeah.
See what happens. Let's just see what happens, Andrew.
He's in the front row of the bleachers and he's trying to do a little switcheroo. Yeah.
Andrew, get caught in the net. Believe me, I know how to do it. Get caught in the net.
Oh, man.
I would think also Liam Hendricks would be one that you'd enjoy doing. It's going to be tough for a closer, but he has a nails week and everybody else is quiet. I think it'll be Liam Hendricks time. Yeah,
I'm telling you again, someone just who's so expressive. I've just been drawing him anyway, just aside from that, because it's just I didn't know much about him when he came to the Sox, other than he was Australian, that's pretty much that's the fact, right. Man, has that guy grown on me. His attitude is it's incredible, it's just the way he psychs. He's like a method actor, he just psychs himself up, and it's terrifying. It's so exciting to watch that guy. So he's really, really become one of my favorites. And he's a nice guy. He's just a really nice guy.
And he's so much fun. I mean, he's terrifying, I'm sure, on the mound. He's certainly intense, but he's so goofy. Even as a pretty young, I don't think he was quite established when we did a whole post. I think our usual photo day, we had to split into two. We did the rest of the team, and then we just did Liam, because then we even dipped into when he was in Oakland, and he was like, he was posing with the bat. He was posing like fighting the ball, whatever goofy stuff. And all these guys sort of want to do that. Like, God, this is boring. I don't want to keep saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do that pose where I look really intense or whatever. And he's just like, forget it. First of all, let's shoot I guess you don't have roles anymore, but let's shoot 100 on me. And, I want to bat. I want to put a batting helmet on. I'm going to show you my batting gloves, even though why do I got batting gloves? The guy just sort of nuts. He's not afraid to, it's one thing to be a little crazy, like, talking trash in the bullpen or something. But when you're just like, I'm going to be crazy in public on photo day. Yeah. And you're going to take it. I like that extra gear is pretty cool.
Absolutely. He's just, he's unapologetically himself. He's like, look, when I'm going on the mound, I'm going to be intense. That's how I play the game. And off the mound, he's just going to be himself. And it's just, it's really refreshing. I love that. Talking about like changing the game. He's one of those guys. It's just, he's not afraid to just do what he needs to do to win,
And it's hard to look at a closer, and I think it's probably still hard for a guy like that to pull it off real like leadership and clubhouse leadership. I'm sure it's possible, but I think it's tough, especially it's a new team. And when you start looking at, oh, geez, $18 million for a closer and their bullpen was already strong. Okay. And listen, I was one of those guys. I think a lot of fans were like, is this really where we should be spending our money? But that aside, you realize now what you've got in this guy who's going to probably bring something to the table, even if he is scuffling. Whereas maybe an Alex Colomé, probably wasn't necessarily that presence if he was struggling, which he didn't with the White Sox, but had he. Liam Hendriks, you figure, is going to be bringing presence and confidence and support for his team in a leadership role, in almost a captaincy kind of role. And boy, you spend anything for that.
Absolutely. I mean, when you see this guy close 3 games in 2 days and stuff like that, you're seeing him all the time, and the players are on the bench seeing him all the time. And he comes out there and I feel good. I feel confident, so I know if it's making me feel like that, it's making the players feel like that. Yeah.
Mitch, I think we are talking ourselves into I think we're just handing the next player of the week just to Liam because we're talking about so much.
Wink, wink,
all right,
wink,
do
nudge,
it, man.
Nudge.
Forget it. Sorry, guys. Your votes aren't going to count this week.
We're just whatever doing it Liam. Takes.
You just got to have it. It's the first half. Come on. Mitch, this has been a ton of fun. We have a lot of other irons in the fire. Again, when you get the 40-hour day, please let me know because there's a lot more stuff I want you to do, including, listen, man, hop on some other podcasts because your voice is fun. It's fresh. And I know there's a lot of things you're juggling, but absolutely welcome to do this again because this has been a ton of fun. Everybody, as always, thanks for listening to these podcasts, including the sort of Meet the Players podcast, where you get an introduction to our ever-growing and very diverse, fun, colorful staff, including our latest profiled, Mitch Ransdell. And it was good to get a chance to learn about you, Mitch, and thanks for taking the time to do this.
Likewise. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. This is, hey, I know it's just sort of a short, like morning, early afternoon before the game, but hey, I'm just declaring it. It's Mitch Ransdell Day. So Meet the Players, read it up, listen up. Thanks you for making it to the end and listening to our podcast number 51. And we're going to have another one. Oh gosh, probably sooner than you know. You'll sneeze and there'll be another podcast. Number 52 will be up anytime now, but that does not excuse you from having enjoyed this and maybe even re-listening to this fabulous podcast with Mitch Ransdell. Thank you, Mitch. Let's do this again sometime.
Thanks so much. We'll do.